All right. Well, I haven't been on for a long time. How you doing? But I guess if I get started, that'll help. Um. All right. So this is the next installment. If you go to the Reading Cow channel, you'll be able to see. This will be the seventh uh, installment of a reading of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Gibbon. All right. So where we left off last time, the extent of the empire in the age of the Antonines, yeah, however you say it. The extent and military force of the empire in the age of the Antonines. Anton, how you doing? All right. In the 2nd century of the Christian era, the Empire of Rome comprehended the fairest part of the earth and the most civilized portion of mankind. The frontiers of that extensive monarchy were guarded by ancient renown and disciplined valor. The gentle but powerful influence of laws and manners had gradually cemented the union of the provinces. Yeah. Their peaceful inhabitants enjoyed and abused the advantages of wealth and luxury. The image of a free constitution was preserved with decent reverence. The Roman, let me see if I can put this right smack dab. It's a learning experience. All right. Oops. The Roman Senate appeared to possess the sovereign authority and devolved on the emperors all the executive powers of government during a happy period of more than 80 years. Is that 80-something years? The public administration was conducted by the virtue of the abilities of Nerva. Tryon, my patience. Trajan, sometimes they say. Hadrian and the two Antonines. Antonines. Who are they? I don't know. So I'm reading the book. All right. It is the design of this and the 2 succeeding chapters to describe the prosperous condition of their empire, and afterwards, from the death of Marcus Antoninus, to deduce the most important circumstances of its decline and fall. A revolution which will ever be remembered and is still felt by the nations of the earth. The principal conquests of the Romans were achieved under the Republic, and the emperors, for the most part, were satisfied with preserving those dominions which had been acquired by the policy of the Senate. The active emulations of the consuls and the martial enthusiasm of the people. The 7 first centuries were filled with a rapid succession of triumphs, but it was reserved for Augustus to relinquish the ambitious design of subduing the whole earth, and to introduce a spirit of moderation into the public councils. Inclined to peace by his temper and situation, it was easy for him to discover that Rome, in her present exalted situation, had much less to hope than to fear from the chance of arms, and that in the prosecution of remote wars the undertaking became every day more difficult, the event more doubtful, and the possession more precarious and less beneficial. The experience of Augustus added weight to these salutary reflections and effectually convinced him that, by the prudent vigor of his counsels, it would be easy to secure every concession which the safety or dignity of Rome might require from the most formidable barbarians. Instead of exposing his person and his legions to the arrows of the Parthians, he obtained, by an honorable treaty, the restitution of the standards and prisoners which had been taken in the defeat of Crassus. Like my spoon, I duct taped a spoon to the top of my headphones because the The thing broke, right? So my headphones wouldn't stay on. So I taped a spoon to it. Isn't that cool? Okay, so Dion Cassius, book 1, is that what live means? Page 736, with the annotations of Rymor. Okay, this is probably a source, who has collected all that Roman vanity has left upon the subject. The marble of Ancira, Ansira, on which Augustus recorded his own exploits, asserted that he compelled the Parthians to restore the ensigns of Crassus. He compelled. Yeah. Give us his flags. They were all dead, man. They were all killed. His generals in the early part of his reign attempted the reduction of Ethiopia and Arabia Felix. Where the hell is that? They marched near 1,000 miles to the south of the tropic, but the heat of the climate soon repelled the invaders and protected the unwarlike natives of those sequestered regions. 2C. What's this? Let's take a look. Strabo. Okay, so I got that from Strabo. Pliny the Elder, Natural History, Volume 1, Book 6, C32, 35, 28, 29, and Dion Cassius. So it's got multiple sources for this. All these people have left us very curious details concerning these wars. The Romans made themselves masters of Mariaba. Mariaba? Or Merab, a city of Arabia Felix, well known to the Orientals. See Abul Feda and the Nubian Geography. That's a famous book, I think. I was looking up that before. They were arrived within 3 days' journey of the Spice Country, the rich object of their invasion. I think I already read this. Rich Rome. All right. The northern countries of Europe scarcely deserved the expense and labor of conquest. The forests and morasses of Germany were filled with a hardy race of barbarians who despised life when it was separated from freedom. Oh, yeah? And though on the first attack they seemed to yield to the weight of Roman power, they soon, by a signal act of despair, regained their independence and reminded Augustus of the vicissitude of fortune. 3a. What kind of note is this? Let's see. By the slaughter of Verus and his 3 legions. Okay, they're referring to that again. Yeah. See the first book of the Annals of Tacitus. Suetonius and August C23 and Velius Paterculus. I need to know what this crap means. I really have forgotten. I think I've studied it at some point. Yeah. Harbrace Handbook or something like that. But it's old. They don't do this stuff anymore. I need to know what it means. So I can go look up the source, man, and see what because he could be making stuff up. You don't know. On the death of that emperor, his testament was publicly read in the Senate. He bequeathed as a valuable legacy to his successors the advice of confining the empire within those limits which nature seemed to have placed as its permanent bulwarks and boundaries. On the west, the Atlantic Ocean, the Rhine and Danube on the north, the Euphrates on the east, and towards the south, the sandy deserts of Arabia and Africa. Tacitus, Annals, Volume 1, Chapter 2, is that what? Dion Cassius, Volume 1, LV1, I forget how to even read LV, Roman numerals. Need to go study Roman numerals again, I completely forgot. Yeah, I can read, MCM, XXX, III, 1933. Because so many cartoons were made back then. Yeah, they always had the year was made. All right, so return. Oh, wait a second. And the speech of Augustus itself and Julius Caesar's It receives great light from the learned notes of his French translator M. Spamheim. All right. Happily for the repose of mankind, the moderate system recommended by the wisdom of Augustus was adopted by the fears and vices of his immediate successors. Engaged in the pursuit of pleasure or in the exercise of tyranny, the first Caesars seldom showed themselves to the armies or to the provinces, nor were they disposed to suffer that those triumphs which their indolence neglected should be usurped by the conduct and valor of their lieutenants. The military fame of a subject was considered as an insolent invasion of the imperial prerogative, and it became the duty as well as interest of every Roman general to guard the frontiers entrusted to his care, without aspiring to conquest, which might have proved no less fatal to himself than to the vanquished barbarians. Let's say Germanicus, Suetonius, Paulinus, and Agricola were checked and recalled in the course of their victories. Corbulo was put to death. Okay, who's this guy? He's dead. Well, we know that much. Military merit. Is this guy conceited? No. Military merit, as it is admirably expressed by Tacitus, was, in the strictest sense of the word, imperatoria virtus. The only accession which the Roman Empire received during the first century of the Christian era was the province of Britain. In this single instance, the successors of Caesar and Augustus were persuaded to follow the example of the former rather than the precept of the latter. The proximity of its situation to the coast of Gaul seemed to invite their arms. What do you mean, standing over there just right where we can see you? It's an invitation. That's what it is. The pleasing, though doubtful, intelligence of a pearl fishery attracted their avarice. Pearl fishery, I think I read this before. Caesar himself conceals that ignoble motive, but it is mentioned by Suetonius, C47. The British pearls proved, however, of little value on account of their dark and livid color. Tacitus observes with reason and Agricola that it was an inherent defect. Ego facilis crediderum naturam margaritas dice quam nobis avaritiam. Oh yeah? What the hell does that mean? When I'm really, being typical, I'll go look everything up. I don't know. But I'm kind of in a weird mood. I haven't yet been getting online, man. I can't do that. Had to get out and get some exercise. That's what I had to do. All right. And as Britain was viewed in the light of a distinct and insulated world, the conquest scarcely formed any exception to the general system of continental measures. After a war of about 40 years, awesome, undertaken by the most stupid, he called somebody stupid. Let's see who it was. Claudius, Nero, and Domitian. A hope is expressed by Pomponius Mela. 1-3-6. He wrote under Claudius that by the success of the Roman arms, the island and its savage inhabitants would soon be better known. It is amusing enough to peruse such passages in the midst of London. Amusing, is it? Maintained by the most dissolute, most stupid, maintained by the most dissolute, and terminated by the most timid of all the emperors. The far greater part of the island submitted to the Roman yoke. Oh, yeah? A note. See the admirable abridgment given by Tacitus in the Life of Agricola, and copiously, though perhaps not completely, illustrated by our own antiquarians Camden and Horsley. Return. The various tribes of Britain possess valor without conduct, and the love of freedom without the spirit of union. They took up arms with savage fierceness. They laid them down or turned them against each other with a wild inconsistency. Sounds like modern England, yeah. And while they fought singly, they were successively subdued. Neither the fortitude of Caractacus, nor the despair. I'm sorry, nor the despair of Boudica. I think it's. I was always told it was Boudica, but this is like boa constrictor. Boadicea. Later. All right. That's the girl. Yeah, that rose up. Nor the fanaticism of the Druids. Those fanatical Druids. It's the first I've heard about fanatical Druids. Maybe I'm not educated well. That's what it is. Yeah. Okay, let's go. They took up arms with savage fierceness. They laid them down and turned them against each other with wild inconsistency. And while they fought singly, they were successively subdued. Neither the fortitude of Caractacus nor the despair of Boudica, nor the fanaticism of the Druids could avert the slavery of their country, nor resist the steady progress of the imperial generals, who maintained the national glory when the throne was disgraced by the weakest or the most vicious of mankind. At the very time when Domitian, confined to his palace, felt the terrors which he inspired, his legions under the command of the virtuous Agricola defeated the collected force of the Caledonians at the foot of the Grampian hills, and his fleets, venturing to explore an unknown and dangerous navigation, displayed the Roman arms round every part of the island. The conquest of Britain was considered as already achieved, and it was the design of Agricola to complete and ensure his success by the easy reduction of Ireland, for which, in his opinion, 1 legion and a few auxiliaries were sufficient. The Irish writers, jealous of their national honor, are extremely provoked on this occasion, both with Tacitus and with Agricola. Oh, yeah? Come over here and say that. Yeah. The Western Isle might be improved into a valuable possession, and the Britons would wear their chains with less reluctance if the prospect and example of freedom were on every side removed before their eyes. But the superior merit of Agricola, soon occasioned his removal from the government of Britain, and forever disappointed this rational though extensive scheme of conquest. Before his departure, the prudent general had provided for security as well as for dominion. He had observed that the island is almost divided into 2 unequal parts by the opposite gulfs, or as they are now called, the Friths of Scotland. Across the narrow interval of about 40 miles, he had drawn a line of military stations, which was afterwards fortified, in the reign of Antoninus Pius, by a turf rampart erected on foundations of stone. The wall of Antoninus. See Horsley's Britannia Romana. Yeah. 11C10. Note, Agricola fortified the line from Dumbarton to Edinburgh. Consequently, within Scotland, the Emperor Hadrian, during his residence in Britain about the year 121, caused a rampart of earth to be raised between Newcastle and Carlisle. Antoninus Pius, having gained new victories over the Caledonians by the ability of his general Lollius Serbicus, caused a new rampart of earth to be constructed between Edinburgh and Dumbarton. Where the hell is that? Scotland somewhere? Lastly, Septimius Severus caused a wall of stone to be built parallel to the rampart of Hadrian, and on the same locality. See John Warburton's Valum Romanum, or the History of the Antiquities of the Roman Wall. And Antiquities of the Roman Wall, London, 1754. 4TO, what does that mean? Dash W? What does that even mean? See, likewise, a good note from on the Roman Wall and Lingard's History of England, Volume 1, page 40, 4 to edit. What? Nonsense. This wall of Antoninus, at a small distance beyond the modern cities of Edinburgh and Glasgow, was fixed as the limit of the Roman province. The native Caledonians preserved in the northern extremity of the island their wild independence, for which they were not less indebted to their poverty than to their valor. Their incursions were frequently repelled and chastised, but their country was never subdued. 11. The poet Buchanan celebrates with elegance and spirit, see his Sylvae volume, the unviolated independence of his native country. But if the single testimony of Richard of Cirencester, was sufficient to create a Roman province of Vespasiana to the north of the wall, that independence would be reduced within very narrow limits. You know what that was? My wife. My wife took my other phone, right? And I restored this phone and so now my wife's alarms are inextricably linked. Go figure. All right. She put an alarm to remind her when the period would start. And she's like, not even at school today. She's at the dang training stuff. All right. The masters of the fairest and most wealthy climates of the globe turn with contempt from gloomy hills assailed by the winter tempest, from lakes concealed in a blue mist, and from cold and lonely heaths over which the deer of the forest were chased by a troop of naked barbarians. But naked, that's what they are. And they're barbaric. They say barbar, right? Such was the state of the Roman frontiers, and such the maximums of imperial policy, from the death of Augustus to the accession of Trajan, that virtuous and active prince had received the education of a soldier and possessed the talents of a general. A note, and I guess we're talking about Trajan here, Trajan. See Pliny's Panegyric, which seems founded on facts. Oh, yeah? The peaceful system of his predecessors was interrupted by scenes of war and conquest, and the legions, after a long interval, beheld a military emperor at their head. The first exploits of Trajan were against the Dacians, the most warlike of men, who dwelt beyond the Danube, and who during the reign of Domitian had insulted with impunity the majesty of Rome. See Dion Cassius, LXVII. Return. To the strength and fierceness of barbarians they added a contempt for life, which was derived from a warm persuasion of the immortality and transmigration of the soul. See, that's what gets you in trouble right there. People think they're going to live forever, and they just run amok. And then they don't live forever, they die. Herodotus, LIVC 94. Decebalus, the Dacian king, and proved himself a rival not unworthy of Trajan, nor did he despair of his own and the public fortune, till by the confession of his enemies he had exhausted every resource both of valor and policy. Need to go read Pliny the Elder and Pliny's the adopted one, Pliny the Younger, I guess. Yeah. Go read that again. Decebalus, the Dacian king, proved himself a rival not unworthy of Trajan, nor did he despair of his own and the public fortune, till by the confession of his enemies he had exhausted every resource of valor and policy. Pliny. Yes, you didn't read that. This memorable war, with a very short suspension of hostilities, lasted 5 years, and as the emperor could exert without control the whole force of the state, it was terminated by an absolute submission of the barbarians. Dion Cassius. I need to look these guys up. Right. Proclamation of your mama. Well, no. Proclamation of 1763. Cassius Dio was a Roman historian. Okay, let's bring this guy up. All right, now who was the? I saw that name. Aurelius Victor and Epitome. Oh no. Gotta fix that some kind of way. All right. Yeah, this is the guy that we need to look up. And then the next thing is what he's talking about, who he's talking about. Copy. See, this is what happens when I really am actually reading something. Ooh, and just what we wanted. There he is, man. Isn't that? Yeah. Based on Livy, books 1 through 5. Do we have? This is definitely worth looking at. So Cassius Dio and Eutropius. All right, let's see. Let's see. Pliny. And let's get Pliny again. Pliny the Younger. There he is. So we have all the tabs of the guys that we're talking about. And let's see. I'm looking at what I want to see what he wrote. The largest surviving body of Pliny's work is in his Epistulae, letters, a series of personal missives directed to his friends and associates. These letters are a unique testimony of Roman administrative history and everyday life in the 1st century AD. Especially noteworthy among the letters are 2 in which he describes this is the one that I read with one of my classes, describes the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in October 79, during which his uncle Pliny the Elder died. Epistulae, that would be 616, 620. And one in which he asked the emperor for instructions regarding the official policy concerning Christians. Those are the 2 really interesting things. It's like Christians would be, if they would not worship the idols of the emperors or whatever like that, they would be executed. Yeah, it's like, well, I ask them to say they're not going to say Jesus is king anymore, or worship him as a god, and that they worship good Roman emperors. And if they don't do it, I kill them. That's what they do. So, what would I do? Okay, so let's get this stuff. Pliny on archive.org. I got caps lock on. Let's see. Pliny the Elder. Historia Naturalis. Let's actually, this is an actual work of Pliny, so I'm going to open this up. Oh, it's an audiobook by Pliny the Elder. Okay, so I'm going to archive this back up. I can't live without archive. Well, it's not working. Actually, let's look at filters. Well, this is the first time, I really did a... Mom, it's broken. Alright, let's see. Alright. Preface. Oh. The only translation of Pliny's Natural History which has hitherto appeared in the English language is that by Philemon Holland, published in the latter part of the reign of Elizabeth. It is no disparagement to Holland's merits as a diligent and generally faithful translator to say that his work is unsuited to the requirements of the 19th century. That's a claim. All right. In the present translation, the principal editions of Pliny have been carefully consulted, and no pains have been spared, as a reference to the notes will show, to present to the reader the labors of recent commentators, among whom stands preeminent the celebrated Cuvier. It has been a primary object to bring to the illustration of the work whatever was afforded by the progress of knowledge and modern discoveries in science and art. Without ample illustration, Pliny's valuable work would want much of the interest which belongs to it, and present difficulties scarcely surmountable by anyone who has not made the author as a special study. In the first two books, the text of Hardon, as given in Lemaire's edition, Paris 1827, has been followed. In the remainder of Sillig, Gotha, 1851-53, excepting in some few instances where, for reasons given in the notes, it has been deemed advisable to depart from it. The first two books and portions of others are the performance of the late Dr. Bostock, who contemplated a translation of the entire work, but unfortunately for the interest of science, he was not permitted to carry his design into execution. Upwards of 100 pages had been printed off before the present translator entered on his duties, and they had not the advantage of Dr. Bostock's superintendence through the press. Some trifling oversights have occurred. These are, for the most part, corrected in a short appendix. The life and writings of Pliny. Gaius Plinius Secundus was born either at Verona or Novum Comum. Okay, let me check. Oh, I'm at 35 minutes, but I gotta. All right, so see there we've got the stuff. All right, so let's see. Go back. The new province of Dacia, which formed a second exception to the precept of Augustus, was about 1,300 miles in circumference. Its natural boundaries were the Dniester, the Theiss or Tibiscus, the lower Danube, and the Euxine Sea. What is that? Euxine? What? The vestiges of a military road may still be traced from the banks of the Danube to the neighborhood of Bender, a place famous in modern history and the actual frontier of the Turkish and Russian empires. See a memoir of M. D'Anville on the province of Dacia. See if we can get this in English. So, yeah, Pliny looks like he needs more, examination. Definitely. Jean. English. See if we can get it in English. What do you know? It's an archive. Oh, and don't tell me. Okay, yeah, it looks like it is in English. I was like, don't tell me it's in French here too. Dang it. After all the labors. Oh my. Okay. I just want to check back. 28, book 28, 444. My God. Eight 48 pages. Oh, still. Okay. It's time. Tryon was ambitious of fame, and as long as mankind shall continue to bestow more liberal applause on their destroyers than on their benefactors, the thirst of military glory will ever be the vice of the most exalted characters. The praises of Alexander, transmitted by a succession of poets and historians, had kindled a dangerous emulation in the mind of Trajan. Like him, the Roman emperor undertook an expedition against the nations of the East, but he lamented with a sigh that his advanced age scarcely left him any hopes of equaling the renown of the son of Philip. Okay, so let's see where we're at. That's the end of The Reading Cow from Another World, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.